Welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to start our final summative hand drawing. Just as a review before we get started on our final summative hand drawing, things we learned on our previous lessons. In this lesson, we learned about proportion. We created a proportional hand drawing and we measured our hand and we learned about how big everything should be in relation to each other. Then we created, using proportion, we created kind of a robot hand. We put in the basic like square shapes, we put in the bone structure, then we kind of outlined the sections of our fingers to kind of line everything up and make sure we had everything in the right place. Then once we finished the robot hand, we went back with contour line, which could be the outside line around the edge of a shape, or it could be the line on the interior of a shape that actually shows the three-dimensional form. Then, after we got our contour lines in and we erased our robot hand, we added value with either cross-hatching, stippling, or blending, and we shaded or blended in all the different values to give three-dimensional form to our hand. On the back of our paper, we wrote all of those learning objectives here. One more thing that we talked about was observation, that you must look closely and you must compare everything as you go along. You're constantly looking back and forth from your hand to the drawing, from the drawing to the hand, and comparing all the time. Then, once we finished that drawing and took it to a final completion, we learned in the next lesson about gesture drawing. Gesture drawings being quick, sketchy drawings of a gesture being a movement or motion, and a gesture drawing being a quick drawing of that gesture. It should be a quick drawing that just captures the gesture. And on the back of our paper, we wrote our learning goals being you need to know what gesture is and you need to know what a gesture drawing is. Then we talked about procedure and how you should do that. First, drawing the envelope, the shape around the object. Step 2, drawing the structure, putting in bones and then drawing the sections. Then getting to the contour line, going around all the shapes, and of course observing closely as you went to make changes. Okay? Now, today you're going to start a final hand drawing. Now your drawing is going to start out as a gesture drawing and move into a finished drawing. So you're going to choose a gesture that you haven't done before, and you're going to follow the procedure for how to do a gesture drawing, and you're going to take that gesture drawing to a finished level. So, getting started, the procedure I would like you to follow. On your blank piece of paper that you have in front of you, you're going to write your first name and your last name. My first name is Mr. My last name is Lundgren. You write your first name and then write your last name. Then write your section number. Let's pretend this is period 1. On A day. Now at the top of your page, I'd like you to write the following procedure for what you should do. Step 1, these are our learning goals. You will create an envelope. This will help you get the general idea of the whole shape. Step 2, write this on your paper. You're going to think only of structure. Okay, you're going to think of where are the bones? Use X-ray vision to look at the bones, and then once you get the bones in, you're going to draw the sections of the robot hand over those bones. Now if you think of this as part 1, this would be gesture drawing. Okay? This is what we'll accomplish in the demonstration of this video. In the second part of the next video, you'll do step 3, which is close observation. During that close observation, you're going to be checking back and forth. And in that observation, you're going to put in the contour lines, both exterior and interior. interior contour lines. Okay? Once you're putting in those contour lines, you might have to erase the gestures and the sections and the bones so that you can do step 4, which is to add the value. And your value should show form. Okay? So copy that on your paper. Those are the learning goals. That's what I expect you to do and the procedure that you should follow on this summative hand drawing. Then we're going to use this similar procedure in all of the rest of the figure drawing. Good. Now that you've got that finished, flip your paper over and let's begin. You are going to choose one hand gesture that is different than something you've done before. So you can't do the same gestures that you did on your gesture drawing. Let's pretend I'm starting and I want my hand to look something like this. Okay? You're going to start with the envelope. Here's a spot, here's a spot, here's a spot, here's a spot. And think of the ends of those fingers as different points. If I put a point here, and here, and here, and here, and I outline all those points. Then I take like my thin nylon sock over my hand and I create that mitten-like shape, which we call the envelope, and I draw my shape from all the points on that hand, and that gives me the envelope within which I will create my drawing. Then I think bone. Here's the bone of my hand. It goes from here to here, here to here, here to here. And I say, okay, bone, bone, bone. Now if I look through my x-ray vision, I know that my bone here is kind of lined up right underneath. It starts here. Bone, bone, bone. Starts bone, 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 bone. Now I've got all my main bones in. Then I start doing sections. Here's a section, here's a section, here's a section. Here's a section of my index finger, index finger, index finger. Section of my index finger, middle finger, middle finger. Here's my section of my ring fingers, my pinky. It's getting smaller because it's farther away, and like here's the whole back area of my hand. Okay, now I've got those sections in. I go back to the contour line. I say, well, the contour line comes up here, goes over the top, bulges out for the knuckle, goes over here, bulges out for the knuckle, curves around and around and around, and then I can go back and like, okay, I don't need that anymore, but I do want to put this contour line in here, and this contour line there, and this contour line there, and I want to then start shading in here to bring the form and the value. Okay, so I'm going through all those steps that we outlined on the back of our paper to create my final drawing. So if I start here and I say, all right, this is my final hand drawing. There we go. All right, here's my envelope. Bottom of my wrist, knuckle of my index finger, knuckle of my index finger, tip of my index finger, which should be directly below this bottom part of my hand. Okay, if I hold that pencil here, you can kind of see those are right below each other. Then, let me bring this light in a little bit so you can see underneath my hand there. So we have a little bit of light coming down in here. All right, then here's my index finger. Here's the knuckle underneath my index finger, and it comes, the knuckle here. It's underneath my index finger. Here's my knuckle, knuckle, pinky, palm. And I've got now this kind of shape that I'm putting my hand into. Now that's pretty small. I've kind of made it a little bit small because I'm looking at a kind of rotated version. But try to fill your paper from top to bottom and side to side. All right, now that I've got that in, I start thinking bones. All right, how am I going to get these bones in here? I've got my wrist bone up to my knuckle, and I've got this bone. So here's my wrist bone. Here's my knuckle of my index finger. Here's my knuckle of my index finger. Here's the last section of my index finger. Now I've got my middle finger. It comes from like down here, and it comes up, and then it comes over, and then it comes down. Now I've got my other bone. It's here. It comes up and over and down. Then I got my pinky. It comes up, over, and down. And then inside I've got my palm that comes this way and my palm that comes this way. All right, and now my thumb starts from here, way down here, like almost above that, and the bone actually goes this way, and then this way, and then this way. And that's my thumb bone. Okay, so there's my bones, second structure. Now I'm going into, here's the meaty part of my index finger. Here's the next section of my index finger. The rounded tip of my index finger here. It's still fitting in to my envelope. Here's my knuckle and the section of my knuckle. Now I'm a little bit smaller than my envelope, but I'm still kind of following it. It's following the general shape. Here's the curved part of my middle finger and the curved meaty part of my middle finger down here. I'm going to move my thumb out of the way so you guys can see my fingers. And then here's the meaty part of my ring finger, meaty part of my ring finger, and then my ring finger comes about down like that. And then my pinky finger is here, comes up here, and has a meaty section. And then under here I've got the inside of my palm. This palm comes in here, this palm comes out like that and around. Then I've got my thumb. Here's the, like, if my thumb is there, here's the like section of my thumb, here's the section of my thumb, and here's that final section of my thumb that's actually going to cover like that little portion right here in between because it's overlapped. Okay, so now this is a gesture drawing. This is where you should end part one. And then you're going to go back and start looking at the close contour lines of where everything fits over that. So this is the end of section 1.